Hi, Mike Brandley, auctioneer. Sans tie today, participating in Casual Thursday. And I've been asked to talk about auctioneers, coronavirus, and some considerations. Basically, two issues here today. One, can you price gouge when you're selling personal protective equipment, PPE as it's known as? And secondly, should you be selling those kinds of equipment or supplies, such as, say, sanitizers or face masks and things like that, in light of the coronavirus we're presently facing? So I'll take the first issue first. I think you can and cannot price gouge at auction, as I've written about. One, the premise that there are two types of auctions pretty much answers the question. In a with reserve auction, there can be minimum bids, there can be reserves, either published or non-published, there can be seller bidding, there can be seller confirmation of the highest bid. There's lots of flavors or varieties of with reserve auctions. And conversely, there are absolute auctions, and absolute auctions have none of that. And as I've argued, the absolute auction is the genuine intent to transfer to the highest bidder, regardless of price, without any of those aforementioned restrictions. So back to our price gouging discussion. I think at an absolute auction, and without reserve auction, as it's also known, or more properly known, I don't think price gouging is even possible. And here's why. Because the bidders unilaterally determine the price. The auctioneer has nothing to do, nor the seller has nothing to do with the high bid. At absolute auction, maybe the items start out at zero or a penny or $1 or something like that, insignificant. And in an absolute auction, the buyers solely determine the price. On the other side, could there be price gouging in a with reserve auction? I would argue, yes, there can be. There isn't necessarily, but there can be. Because I could take what was maybe 10-cent face masks and put a $10 or $100 minimum bid on those face masks. And I'm playing a part, the auctioneer, the seller, playing a part in determining the price. It's no longer, in a with reserve auction, unilaterally the bidders or buyers determining the price, but together the auctioneer, the seller, the bidders, the buyers, all determining the price. And price gouging, by definition, is the seller, or in auctioneer's case, the seller's agent, setting adhesionary 10 times, 20 times, 100 times higher prices given circumstances of high demand over normal market conditions. So, in summary, in an absolute auction, I don't think there can be any price gouging. I don't think any auctioneer would rightly be accused or convicted or disciplined for price gouging in an absolute auction. And I think in a with reserve auction, there would be that risk, not high, but that risk that possibly the minimum bids or reserves would constitute price gouging. Our other topic for today is, should auctioneers be selling PPE, personal protective equipment, and such as masks and sanitizer and gowns and other protective health and safety items? And I would argue that there's nothing that prohibits auctioneers from selling those items. However, we go back to the premise of perception versus reality. Reality, as we previously discussed, in an absolute auction, there wouldn't be any reason to not sell them. There wouldn't be any price gouging. They would be selling to the highest bidder, what the market would bear, so to speak. However, perception, the news, picks up that, or the public notices that an auctioneer is selling, say, face masks, surgical face masks, for 10 times or 100 times or even more than normal retail or normal prices in what was normal circumstances prior to this pandemic or any kind of disaster. Would they note the subtle difference between, say, an absolute auction and a with reserve auction? I would suggest probably not. And so that perception that auctioneer gets on the news, the radio stations pick it up, Facebook shares, all kinds of people discussing or talking about. In fact, on the national news last night, there was a short segment on auctioneers selling PPE, and it wasn't seen in a good light. So I think we have to worry about perception as well as reality, and I think in reality you would be protected in the absolute auction as we've discussed, but I think perception, this might be a good time to not sell those kinds of auction items and not put your face, your brand, your company with getting that much higher price for those desperately needed items. So that's our discussion today. I'm Mike Brantley, auctioneer, and there's other wonderful media on this same page or in this same area, so I encourage you to take advantage of that, and we'll have some other upcoming videos heading your way. Have a great day.